First of all, I want to acknowledge that even though we've been close friends forever, I thought you lived in Arkansas. And you actually live in...
Okay, in Missouri. And to be fair, we were in Arkansas for the last 2 years.
So you're in the Ozark world.
Yes, we are.
When I discovered that in my brain this morning, I was like, oh my God, she lives in Ozark country.
Yeah.
Did you see the show?
Yes. But you know what? Not all the seasons. I think only were there 5? I think we saw the first 3.
It's real dark.
And that's where yes, it is.
And like, that's where I got a little
anxious. Right. I mean, then I'm like, oh, no, that happens. Nope. That is absolutely right on. And then I'm like, okay, now they're taking it a little too far.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. As most shows do.
And you're in Salt Lake.
I'm in Salt Lake right now. I split time between New York and Salt Lake. And then we had a huge snowstorm last night. So we are covered in snow, which is kind of beautiful and amazing. It doesn't happen in the valley very often, so it's really, really nice. Now I'm just going to have Ozark in my brain throughout this whole podcast. Do you know Jason Bateman? Anyway, okay. I realized that I had avoided you subconsciously for the last couple of months. Election night, when it turned red, I realized that there was an enormous disconnect. The media that I had been fed was extremely different than the media that you had been fed. And it all started to come to this fruition of, wait a minute, we need to have a conversation. And I think start to humanize what's going on here and take back control of the narrative. 'Cause you and I talk about all the things, and we're not afraid to talk about it, right?
Yeah, 100%. And so when you called me and you said, we've got to talk about this, because I think there are so many people that have so many questions that we don't have answers to. And I remember, I think subconsciously avoiding you as well. Mm-hmm. I think just because it is tough, and we've been friends for so long, as the landscape changed and, Kamala came in and Biden, all of the stuff, I didn't have answers. So I didn't know that I could have a good conversation with you, because I didn't like where we were. I mean, I was not a Trumper. I'm not a MAGA person, but I am conservative and a Republican. So there was a lot of things for me to figure out. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I could have had a good conversation with you because I didn't have any answers.
Yes. And I felt like especially, I would say it was not just with Kamala, but that horrific debate between Biden and Trump, where we were all just sort of shell shocked. And I truly thought, was he stroking out? Like, should we just stop the television show and make sure this man's okay? It just became so crazy. Like, I have a community of friends that are well read and think and want a better country. And so it was like, we have to shut the noise out. And I felt like if Jolene and I talk about this, all the things and yes, it's just our opinion, but we are talking to each other with curiosity, and we're listening, which I feel like we don't listen to each other anymore.
Well, and I think too, you and I have a unique relationship because we've been friends for so long that we can say the hard things to each other, mm-hmm. and allow the other person to express their feelings and why they got to that point. And I don't think there are a lot of people in our worlds that have that opportunity, or they're behind a computer and they're just spewing, crap and commenting and fueling a fire that, doesn't do anything, right? I mean, it doesn't solve anything.
Absolutely. And I've always been of the belief that, yes, the computer can be incredible. Like, we have access to information and beauty and all kinds of things with this, but you would never say the things that people are saying to each other on the computer, right, if you were face to face with them. You just wouldn't. 100%. And right. We have, it is this magical connection, and yet there's so much disconnect because we've forgotten that we are human beings on the other side of that computer screen. And it is much harder. It is hard to listen and to want to understand someone else.
Oh, absolutely. But to do it for the right reason. Because then I'm sure there are a lot of people that love to get in debate. I mean, how many times have you seen, stupid, somebody filming in a restaurant, two people getting into it, and you're like, no, that was completely staged, or you're doing it because you're being filmed, or you're filming it because you're trying to get a rise out of somebody. And it's, again, not for the right reasons.
No,
it's not with empathy and love and respect.
Yeah. So because this has taken a little bit of time to figure out how to do, I think it's quite poignant that today is January 4th. And in 2 days, it's the anniversary of a really hard day in this country. Where were you on that day? Do you remember?
I was working, and I think I probably got a text from our girls saying, do you guys have the news on? I mean, that was probably, and I remember like seeing the news, but I don't think I focused on it. I'm like, God, this is a shit show, and turned it off.
You did?
I don't think at the time, maybe I watched it for 20 minutes, maybe a half hour, and then walked away.
When you walked away, I'm assuming it hadn't escalated yet.
I remember seeing protests outside of the Capitol. Like that, yes. So I don't know that they'd actually gone in yet. I mean, it wasn't the initial, and correct me if I'm wrong. There was a rally that Trump spoke at. Mm-hmm. He told them to, fight like hell or whatever his words were. They, a majority of them went to the Capitol. Mm-hmm. That's when all hell broke loose. Some decided to storm and go into the Capitol. So it probably was when they were outside of the Capitol.
Okay. And then you turned it off.
Yeah. I just didn't think it was an issue. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. So like, oh, there's protests.
And you were in your workday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I had a completely opposite experience, because my stepmother was dying that day, and I had to FaceTime with her and say goodbye.
Oh my gosh.
It was so surreal. So I remember FaceTiming with her, and she had deep dementia, so she couldn't really register what was going on, and she was not verbal anymore, and was having this like really deep experience saying goodbye, because it's also in COVID, so I couldn't go out there. We knew my stepmom was dying and my dad was by himself, and so here I was having this experience. And I think, we'd heard this in the liberal media. We'd heard that January 6th was going to be a big deal, and that there was a lot of protest and things that January 6th had never been a thing before. Yeah, it was just protocol, right? So I know that I had the television on for that reason. Mm-hmm. And Josh was in the other room working. And so I remember like saying goodbye to Jackie and then looking up and watching all these people start to storm. And I was like, Josh, get in here. Something's wrong. And we were just glued, and there were nooses. It was just like to hang Mike Pence. It was unfathomable. And so we watched the whole thing, and we couldn't believe like it was taking so long for Trump to say anything. So you finished your workday, and then what happened? Probably
it wasn't until I probably turned the news on at, 5 or 6 o'clock that I saw the extent of, what happened. I mean, and, people were being escorted and seeking shelter and that woman was killed and the cops were killed. Was there one person that was killed?
That woman, she was a veteran.
She was a protester?
Oh yeah.
But who killed her?
The security team. Like she crashed through the windows. I think she might have been an ex-Marine. She was an ex-military. And then, they went inside, and then like one cop was killed in the Capitol, and then others were injured and died. But I also was just curious. maybe you were looking at different media, because what I'm finding really chilling is that a lot of the right, I'm not suggesting that you listen to this far right stuff, but that they're saying that they were tourists, that there was no violence. And I watched it, and there was. Right. I just was very fascinated by that day, honestly. And so I've read the Cassidy Hutchinson book, and I read the Liz Cheney book, just about like all the extent of what happened. And yet there is now this reframing and reimagining.
Here's what my memory would be right now is that I remember one person dying. I think it was a heart attack. And that was a security guy or a police officer, I think.
Oh,
again, the narratives that we have, that we remember.
Yeah. The first one was this woman, and she was shot, because I saw it.
Wow.
I mean, it was live. It was totally bananas.
If I were to tell you what my thoughts are on that right now, it would be that Trump should have said something before he did. I mean, I think that's the general consensus of anyone, was that he should have stepped in and said, hey, stand down. You've gone too far. But I don't agree that he instigated it. I think he could have de-escalated it. Was it instigated by a rally, and that Trump said, go, fight like hell, and they did it, and it was, no, I feel like there were some, there were some people that had it all planned out.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of evidence that that's what happened, and it almost seemed like, I don't know, from all the stuff that I've read, it almost seemed like they had this idea, or Trump had this idea, or the people in power that didn't want to lose power also had the idea. And it was like, how much can we get away with?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're like, oh shit, we can get away with it. And they start believing their own lies. And then other Republicans were like, whoa.
Yeah.
And so there's a moment that I thought, like, even Mitch McConnell, they were all like, this is too much. And then somehow they got back on board with him. I mean, that's the part that's confusing to me.
Got back on board with Trump?
Yeah. I would say, once Biden got into power, it was like, there was this sort of this consensus that, Trump was impeached, and they were going to make sure that he was not elected again. And it was within like weeks that more people were like, oh, was it an insurrection? I don't know if it was. And you're like,
okay, wait. When you're saying impeached, though, that was when he was president.
Yes.
So then you're saying, 2 years later, you're saying, or a year later,
they started the investigation of January 6th. And I don't think that they did that well. And I think they took too long. But it gave people enough time to change the narrative. That there were a lot of Republicans that day. They lived it. They were terrified. Because it wasn't like the protesters came in and would be like, I'm going to kill you and I'm not going to kill you. Right? But one thing I remember, because I was watching it as it was happening, there were these group of men, and they were like the staunch right MAGA guys. And they're sitting in that Capitol, in the Congress, and they're not scared. They're not hiding. They're just sitting there shooting the shit. And I remember at that time going, what the fuck's going on here? They must know something. Now, I'm projecting, but...
Oh, wait. So you're not talking about the people that stormed the Capitol. You're talking about the people that were... Oh, gotcha.
I'm talking about people in Congress. They were sitting there on the desk, like, shooting the shit, waiting for it to calm down when everyone else was hiding behind the chairs.
Okay, so this is where I would say, is that accurate? When you say that the longer it went, they changed the narrative. I would venture to say the longer it went, the more they investigated what really happened. Because weren't there, again, in what I was seeing, there was ABC News, I think specifically, was caught editing film footage and saying, this is what happened. When, if you looked at the extended footage, it was them splicing together different, parts of that day and making it look much worse than it was in real time. Does that ring a bell? Do you remember that at all?
I don't. I mean, I don't watch ABC News, so I would imagine that news media, unfortunately, they want you to capture your attention. And I imagine that could have happened. The irony is I was watching MSNBC, probably the most liberal in your mind, maybe. Yeah. And it was live. So I only saw what I saw. I think that's a problem with media in general, right? And I think that's also why we're here. And again, I'm just a human. You're just a human. We're not journalists. So it's just perception. Like, as I say to you, I saw these men. That's my narrative. I decided that, hey, they seem a little too casual. This seems like it's really serious. And everyone else is scared, but they're not. Why?
Okay, wait. So are you saying that you saw that live on MSNBC, that there was a camera showing a shit show in the background, but guys just sitting there? Like, how did they get that footage?
It's always filmed. It's not private. There are cameras in the chamber. Again, memory is a funny thing. You hear these stories about memory, and Josh talks about it as a litigator, that we can also tell ourselves what we saw. Yeah. Right. And so that's also part of the problem of where we are in this country, I think, is it's like, totally I saw this. I heard this. Did you?
Yeah. Right.
That day was so important to me. Like, some days are important. Saying goodbye to my stepmom, it sort of locked into my brain what else happened that day. I didn't have any auditions that day. So I was just, doing my thing. Yeah. And you were like, I'm running a business. So this is a bunch of nonsense right now. It's just the same shit. Of course, I'm putting words in your mouth.
No, you're right.
And I got work to do. And I think also, for what it's worth, in the before times, when you and I didn't have cell phones and didn't have computers, you had 3 news channels. Yeah. There was a law before Reagan I read about that news stations were supposed to, if they were going to give 5 minutes to Reagan, they had to give 5 minutes to Carter.
Yeah.
And they don't do that anymore. And that's obviously also why we're here. So you did your day, whatever your day was, and then you turn on the evening news, you get your equal bits and go on.
Yeah.
Now it's just like this flood, right?
Totally. Yeah. No, you're right. And it's interesting too. And I know we'll talk about this 100 more times about where we get our news. And is it the nightly news at 5:30 that you get, 15 minutes of news and 15 minutes of commercials? Or is it Twitter, or is it newspaper? I mean, obviously. And so that's the problem, is I think the narratives are so different with each media that we're looking at. So it
seems like it's become so much about entertainment and not about real news. It seems like there's more violence than ever, but we also have more access to it. And it also seems like media is ready to shove down any violent thing down our throats. We never get any good news.
Okay. We should end every segment with the Would You Rather game. Would you rather play Spin the Bottle with Matt Gaetz or Donald Trump?
Oh my God.
This is
so
revolting. And you have to pick one.
I have to pick one?
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, y'all. I guess I would have to choose Matt Gaetz.
Oh!
I can't believe I just said that. I just sort of threw up in my mouth. But I have to, because he's...
Okay, give me one.
Dude, I don't even know where to go after that. Would you rather intimate cuddle with Mitch McConnell or Hillary Clinton?
Oh, God. Well, I mean, Mitch McConnell, he's a sweet old man.
Ew! See, I'm not good at this. I'm not good at this at all.
I could just cradle him.
Ew.
Take care of him.